But can we not say the pain and suffering are maybe different, because you can have pain without suffering? You can have physical pain.
Yes.
You know, the Mandy Salk, who was our previous guest, who's talking about non-duality, she was talking about having pain, and, you know, she made a joke of it, as well, she takes the painkillers, but you could see that she wasn't that bothered about having pain. She wasn't suffering through it.
Okay. It is suffering that leads us to search. Okay? So that, if you like, I mean, it's a bit of a clinical way to put it, but that is the function of suffering. It is the journey into disintegration, which involves suffering, because that is experienced as suffering. That is actually experienced as suffering. Because within us, we know that we are whole and complete. But there's also this sense of this sort of schism within wholeness and completeness, which gives rise to the sense of suffering. And within the sense of suffering is the urge to cure that. And that urge to cure is ultimately the urge to go home, in the bigger sense of the word. In other words, to come home to who you truly are, what what Zen calls the unborn, what you were before you came here and what you will be after you come. But without this process of disintegration, which, as it were, takes place within the alchemical vessel.
Takes place in what?
In the alchemical vessel.
I haven't heard that term before.
Okay. It takes place within the framework of your body and mind.
Okay.
Okay. And that is the vehicle through which awareness of your true nature can come about. But without the disintegration, then that couldn't happen. Okay, all you would have is primal awareness.
Okay.
This global awareness that we're now talking about, that a lot of your interviews are about, is something that is always, but we have to undertake this journey to come to it. As T.S. Eliot said, to know the place for the very first time.
It's like we start somewhere and we have to go on a huge journey, and in essence we end up where we started.
Exactly. Except now that is the journey of differentiation, of being a separate self who comes home. Okay? And in that, somehow, some kind of possibility or some kind of consciousness emerges, which is of oneness, but that consciousness wasn't there in the first place. Whatever people think, babies do not have this consciousness.
Well, they have it, but there's no awareness of it.
Exactly. They have it, but there is no awareness of it. So they have symbiotic oneness. We are not talking about symbiotic oneness. We're talking about fully differentiated oneness. And that is a paradox. But without the journey, no oneness. Without no transcendence, without something to transcend. So the journey, if you like, through disintegration, which is the journey through, in a medical sense, through ill health, is the journey through disintegration, through suffering, which somehow brings you back home. And this brings up other huge questions, which there probably isn't time to go into here, because that really also involves a kind of surrender, because you don't really come home until you give up the notion of trying to get somewhere.
As we're talking, I'm just also thinking of what's happening to the planet. We're talking about the whole, the bigger picture, how everything's connected with the whole and the theory behind that. And the planet's in a right old mess at the moment. And it's basically
So we think.
Well, on a human level of what we're wanting from the planet, it's all running out and falling apart and our banking system is not as stable as it was, and all the rest of it. What would you feel is happening from a homeopathic point of view with the planet? It's a bit of a question to throw at you, I know,
God.
but it's an interesting question, though.
Do you mean for the planet or for us on the planet?
Well, with the whole on theory, that's all one thing,
Yes.
isn't it? It's just a question of levels.
Yes.
And we're human beings
Yes.
that rely on the resource of the planet,
Yes.
which we're very quickly compromising and
Yes.
exhausting, and we're
Yes.
becoming more and more an
Yes.
unsustainable
Yes.
irritation to the planet
Exactly.
as such.
Yes. Well, I have to say, let's start by saying I really don't know, but maybe we're being invited to open our hearts in a more embracing way to realise that yes, that we are part of something much bigger, that we're not really in control. So maybe you could say that what is happening in terms of the planet is kind of sort of mirroring the state of development that we as a species have come to. And this is why this sort of non-dual consciousness thought is coming, well, it's not a thought, but you know what I mean, it's coming through much more because it's inviting us to step beyond our little kind of individual way of our little box view of things, and realizing that it's kind of much bigger than we can imagine. But in doing that, we like I say, we have to include everything that we've been, everything, the whole journey that we've come as well. So you could say that in this journey towards greater integration, we've become more intellectualized beings and we've lost our contact with nature. And that isn't integration. That's a development through different levels, but it's kind of replacing one level with another. It's, you know, there's this term that Wilbur uses again, transcend and include. You know, each level offers more possibilities, but we have to bring with us, we have to include, in this case, our whole natural being, our relationship with the earth, which has suffered.